If you want to follow along and see how all the points connect, click the link in the description to check out the entire Zombies Chronicles storyline poster. In the beginning, there was only the Ether and the Keepers. Among them were two beings who would later be known by many names. One would be known as Dr. Monty, the other as the Shadow Man. September 3rd, 5 AD. Knowing the planet has a gateway to Agartha, the Apothecans send meteors of element 115 to Earth. They believe humanity will one day use element 115 to wage war amongst themselves, opening a rift that will allow the Apothecans to escape the Dark Ether. January 15th, 1292. The Great War between humanity and the Apothecans begins. April 14th, 1294. Sir Pablo Marinus is saved from the clutches of Amargua by 4 unknown heroes. They would later become known as Primus. December 31st, 1299. Together with the Keepers, Primus defeats the Apothecans, bringing the Great War to an end. January 1st, 1300. Before they seemingly disappear from history, Primus instructs the Wolf King to begin building Der Eisendrache. September 19th, 1318. Honoring the Wolf King's dying request, his loyal servant Arthur scatters and buries his bones in the grounds of Der Eisendrache, accompanied by the King's Wolf. September 20th, 1318. Temporal rifts teleport Arthur to Resolution 1295 in 2025 Angola. June 30th, 1908. A meteor containing element 115 crashes near the stony Tunguska River. August 30th, 1925. Dr. Edward Richtofen joins the Illuminati. February 14th, 1931. Large deposits of element 115 are discovered near Breslin, Germany. Dr. Ludwig Maxis, a German scientist, is sent to investigate. May 10th, 1931. Maxis forms Group 935, an international organization dedicated to the study of element 115. Maxis tells his scientists they represent the future of technological advancement and will be pioneers of human discovery. The group swears to work in secrecy from their respective governments. As Maxis says, we cannot afford to let this power fall into the wrong hands. November 5th, 1934. Samantha Maxis is born. Her mother dies in childbirth. August 11th, 1936. Maxis invites Richtofen to join Group 935. He agrees, secretly acting on behalf of the Illuminati's interests. April 10th, 1937. The Imperial Japanese Army discovers element 115 meteor fragments in a swamp within Japanese territory. They build the Rising Sun facility to continue research. Division 9 is created to oversee its operation. June 14th, 1937. The United States government discovers deposits of element 115 at Gruen Lake. July 2nd, 1939. Maxis and Richtofen begin teleportation experiments with the matter transference prototype, to mild success. The subjects are teleported, but their chemical composition is altered, leaving them catatonic and changed. August 5th, 1939. Using element 115, Maxis and Richtofen resurrect one of the teleported corpses for the first time. Initially, it obeys, but soon becomes rabid and attacks them. The test subject is euthanized. September 3rd, 1939. Richtofen begins development of the Wunderwaffe DG-2. November 23rd, 1939. Maxis turns to the Reichstag for additional funding. Germany agrees to the request, expressing interest in their weapons research, teleportation technology, and the reanimated undead subject. December 4th, 1939. During Test Trial 151, Richtofen and Dr. Schuster successfully teleported a walnut. This is first successful test where the chemical composition of the object is maintained throughout the process. December 5th, 1939. Edward's walnut delivery fails to impress Maxis, who declares it a waste of time. He reveals to Richtofen that Group 935 will soon be funded by Germany. Richtofen worries this will lead to massive defections. He and Schuster decide to continue their teleportation experiments behind Maxis's back. January 4th, 1940. Richtofen and Schuster conduct their first human teleportation test. Richtofen is so confident in its success, he volunteers himself. Teleported to the moon, he encounters the MPD. the Ether Pyramid, hidden by the Apothecans. While inspecting the device, Richtofen is electrocuted and begins hearing the many voices of corruption, including that of the Shadow Man. The device then teleports him to Shangri-La. Corrupted by the dark ether, Richtofen is gradually being driven insane. January 5th, 1940. Richtofen is worshipped by the natives of Shangri-La. An altar is built in his name. Richtofen encounters the focusing stone for the first time. January 23rd, 1940. After a near month of absence, Richtofen returns to Schuster with a plan to build Griffin Station. January 24th, 1940. Richtofen renounces his involvements with the Illuminati. When asked how he could abandon his obligation to the Order, he says, "Teddy was a liar." March 13th, 1940. Construction of Griffin Station on the Moon begins. Frustrated with Maxis's alignments with Germany, other disgruntled Group 935 scientists join the cause. July 13th, 1940. Maxis instructs his assistant Sophia to write a letter to the Reichstag High Command, requesting additional funds. Though he reports that mass production will soon be underway shortly, Doris lacks not only the funding, but sufficient volumes of element 115. August 1st, 1940. In response to Maxis's request, Germany creates 2 new facilities for Group 935. They are the Kino facility, a repurposed theater, and the asylum facility at the Wittenau Sanatorium in Berlin. August 18th, 1940. As per Germany's request, the Japanese Imperial Army hands over the Rising Sun facility to Group 935. Division 9 remains involved on site. October 3rd, 1940. Group 935 establishes a research facility in Siberia near the Tunguska River. November 6, 1940, Group 935 establishes a research facility in Dreisendrach. June 24, 1941, Nikolai Belinsky's wife is killed during the German advance into the Soviet Union. In an effort to numb the pain, Nikolai increasingly turns to vodka. January 11, 1942, Maxis gives Fluffy to Samantha. The dog is expecting a litter. January 20th, 1942, Maxis tests the first file for storage on the data servant. January 26, 1942. On the data servant, Maxis catalogs locations with prominent element 115 deposits. He includes information about its various applications and cites that the reanimation of dead cells is a possible side effect. January 30th, 1942. Richtofen completes the Wunderwaffe DG2 prototype. February 1st, 1942. With Griffin Station completed, Richtofen names Dr. Groff lead scientist and returns to Earth to continue the charade with Maxis. Working alongside Schuster, Groff is left to discover how to power the MPD. February 2nd, 1942. In a speech to his staff, Groff talks optimistically about Griffin Station's establishment as a permanent base of operations. April 17th, 1942. Maxis develops the ray gun prototype at the Rising Sun facility. H. Porter works on developing a second-generation model. June 13, 1942. A result of temporal rifts in 1963 Kino, Monty reaches across time and offers little nudges. One nudge is developing Group 935's Element 115 fused elixirs. They create 4 medicinal beverages, known colloquially as Juggernog, Quick Revive, Speed Cola, and Double Tap. June 28, 1942. Group 935 continues development of a weapons upgrade machine. July 18, 1942. Groff and Schuster unwittingly discover how to charge the MPD. When Schuster kills a rat near the device, its death inexplicably begins filling the tank, charging the device. They report their findings to Richtofen. July 20th, 1942. Richtofen begins sending soldiers and scientists to the moon to be sacrificed, their souls used to charge the MPD. November 5th, 1942. Takayama Saki is dispatched by the Emperor to oversee the work of Group 935 and Division 9 at the Rising Sun facility. December 8th, 1942. Richtofen shares the Element 115 base elixir recipes with Griffin Station. They develop Mule Kick. December 9th, 1942. Nikolai's brother is killed in the Battle of Stalingrad. December 14th, 1942. Richtofen creates monkey bombs. December 16th, 1942. In a personal log, Maxis expresses concern over Element 115's impact on Richtofen's behavior. No longer trusting him, he wonders if it was a mistake to invite him to Group 935. December 20th, 1942. Accompanied by Sophia, Maxis is transferred to the Kino facility to focus on creating Germany's undead army. Samantha is left in Richtofen's care. January 8th, 1943. Maxis worries he and Sophia have grown too close. He considers sending her away. January 16th, 1943. Nikolai is captured by German forces during the Battle of Stalingrad. He becomes a subject in Group 935 experiments. January 27th, 1943. Maxis reports success with Subject 26, whose violent outbursts have been greatly reduced. Maxis believes this method of treatment will be 100% effective in most cases. February 2nd, 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad ends. February 10th, 1943. Maxis reports the treatment has been perfected. He believes if Subject 26 can retain the impressions longer than 26 hours, then the delivery of the zombie army can be accelerated. February 12th, 1943. After attacking a handler, Subject 26 is killed and deemed another setback. May 18th, 1943. Harvey Yena begins his work with Group 935. June 4th, 1943. Primus arrives from Dimension 6-3. In an effort to prevent the events that are about to unfold, they formulate a plan to stop this dimension's Richtofen. June 11th, 1943. Richtofen is contacted from the house by Maxis, who warns that the test subjects must never be allowed to be awakened. The havoc that could be wreaked upon the future by such simple-minded individuals would be catastrophic. June 15th, 1943. Takio reports to the Emperor that the work being done at the Rising Sun facility is unacceptable. July 19th, 1943. Primus Richtofen is teleported to the house in Agartha, reuniting him with Maxis. July 24th, 1943. On the orders of the Emperor, Takio is taken prisoner by Group 935 and Division 9. He is used as a test subject for experiments. July 14th, 1944. After the setbacks with Subject 26, Maxis reports new success with the undead army. However, he maintains his belief that the undead cannot be controlled or maintained. September 2nd, 1944. Pablo Marinis, a Mexican spy, is captured by Group 935 at Dreisendrach. May 9th, 1945. In his cell, Pablo writes of visions of a great war. He describes a great battle against strange demon-like creatures who were trying to devour the earth. In his vision, he sees 4 knights protect him from certain death. He makes a note that the knights wore tunics similar to those in Dreisendrach. June 4th, 1945. Nacht der Untoten. An Allied plane malfunctions over an airfield and crashes. German army trucks transporting the undead and Elements 115 between Group 935 facilities is struck in the crash. The Marines surviving the crash hold out against the undead as long as they can. June 17th, 1945. Peter McCain infiltrates Group 935 at Der Ries. June 29th, 1945. Groff and Schuster develop the wave gun. July 15th, 1945. Richtofen travels to the Siberian facility to do further research on live specimens. As her temporary guardian, he takes Samantha with him. Group 935 begins transferring 3 test subjects for experimentation: Nikolai, Pablo, and Takio. July 29th, 1945. While Richtofen works at the Siberian facility, Group 935 begins development of Deadshot Daiquiri. August 1st, 1945. The test subjects arrive at the Siberian facility for Richtofen's experiments. August 31st, 1945. CIA handler Cornelius Purnell confirms that Peter McCain has successfully infiltrated Group 935 and has been transferred to their asylum facility. Cornelius suspects Group 935 is losing control of their experiments and has been sent in a Marine recon unit to extract McCain. Tank Dempsey is to lead the squad. September 1st, 1945. Peter is outed as a spy and captured by Group 935. September 2nd, 1945. Richtofen reports Pablo has died following a spleen removal. He also reveals he's been performing experiments on Samantha. September 2nd, 1945. World War II ends. Group 935 continues their research. September 2nd, 1945. Temporal rifts begin to affect the asylum facility. An orderly reports increasing problems with test subjects. Many in the facility have begun hearing voices coming from the walls, including the sobbing of a boy and a girl, screaming, and a man shouting for children to close the windows. September 3rd, 1945. An outbreak occurs at the asylum facility. Peter McCain escapes. September 6th, 1945. Verrucht. Dempsey, John Banana, Smokey, and a fourth Marine arrive at the asylum facility to find it overrun by zombies. They fight off the horde as long as they can. Dempsey is apprehended by Group 935. September 7th, 1945. John Banana writes messages and records his last words while being eaten alive by an undead Smokey. September 10th, 1945. Richtofen reports another spy has been captured and will be brought in to replace the Mexican. The subject is Dempsey. September 13th, 1945. Cornelius Purnell attempts to send a transmission to Peter McCain, telling him to rendezvous at the Rising Sun facility. September 17th, 1945. Dempsey arrives at the Siberian facility. September 20th, 1945. Richtofen documents the personality traits of his test subjects. Dempsey's intellect seems low, but his will is strong. Takio is still staring at the floor, muttering what sounds like some kind of proverb over and over again. Nikolai has recently begun responding to stimuli, but only after injections of a new serum primarily made from vodka. Richtofen notes that their minds have been almost entirely broken, with no memory remaining of who they once were. September 24th, 1945. Maxis returns to Der Riese. He orders Richtofen to do likewise, so they may continue their work on the matter transference device. September 27th, 1945. Richtofen returns to Der Riese with Dempsey, Nikolai, Takio, and Samantha. October 1st, 1945. Maxis reports on Richtofen's findings with his live test subjects, noting that while their baseline psyche remains intact, all specific memories have been lost. October 1st, 1945. Infuriated to learn that Maxis has not been mass-producing the DG2 as he swore he would, Richtofen reveals in his plot to destroy Maxis and Samantha, vowing that he will no longer continue to work on his undead army. October 8th, 1945. Groff reports to Richtofen the MPD is nearly ready. October 12th, 1945. Groff radios Richtofen to inform him that the device has been powered up and is awaiting the conduit. Richtofen says he will proceed with Operation Shield and dispose of Maxis and Samantha. October 13th, 1945. Though frustrated that the matter transference tests have been largely unsuccessful, Maxis acknowledges that the test subjects' departure from their original point of origin is undeniable. However, Richtofen's suggestion that the subjects have been transported not through space, but time itself, causes Maxis to worry if his irrationality may soon prove a liability to our endeavors. October 13th, 1945. Maxis and Richtofen perform teleportation test trials on test subjects number 3, 4, and 5. All fail, including test 5, where Maxis uses Fluffy. As test 6 fails, Fluffy, now changed, is teleported back into the chamber. Samantha sees Fluffy and runs into the teleporter. Maxis chases after her. Richtofen seals them both in the test chamber and teleports all 3 of them. October 13th, 1945. Samantha is teleported to the moon while Groff and Schuster work out the MPD. Running into the MPD, she is drawn inside of it, where she becomes corrupted by the dark ether. October 13th, 1945. Maxis is teleported to the crazy place and develops the power to merge with electricity. October 13th, 1945. Richtofen returns to the moon. Learning Samantha is trapped in the MPD, he orders Groff to teleport Maxis there to coax her out of the device. He also warns Groff to keep an eye out for any evil-looking dog. October 13th, 1945. In an effort to free Samantha, Maxis approaches the MPD and persuades her to come out. Once she does, Maxis gives her an instruction: kill them all. Maxis kills himself and merges with the technology of Griffin Station, while Samantha unleashes the undead upon the base. October 14th, 1945. H. Porter activates the alarm as an outbreak occurs at Der Riese. Before taking a cyanide capsule, he says he's all out of hope. God forgive us all. October 14th, 1945. Richthofen returns to Der Riese and awakens Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai. With no recollection of who they are, who Richthofen is, they agree to help him. The four would become known as the Ultimus. October 18th, 1945. Peter McCain parachutes over the Rising Sun facility. He dies shortly after. October 21st, 1945. Shinonuma. Ultimus travels to the Rising Sun facility to recover Richthofen's diary. Upon reading it, Richthofen begins to form his plan to defeat Samantha. October 28th, 1945. Der Riese. Ultimus returns to Der Riese. With his diary, Richthofen plans to use the teleporter to return to the moon and confront Samantha. Unfortunately, the Wunderwaffe DG-2 overloads the teleporter and sends them through time, causing Richthofen to drop his diary. November 5th, 1945. Group 935 is disbanded. January 19th, 1946. The United States and the Soviet Union share the resources recovered from Group 935's various research stations. Richthofen's diary is among the items recovered by the Soviet Union. January 27th, 1946. The Pentagon hires many former Group 935 scientists in an effort to replicate their work. January 29th, 1946. As with their US counterparts, the Soviet hire many former Group 935 scientists. Among them is Harvey Yena, who forms the Ascension Group. July 29th, 1952. The Pentagon begins experiments involving their own versions of the undead. May 12th, 1955. The US government transfers a number of Element 115 experiments to the Groom Lake facility. October 19th, 1955. Gersh and Yuri Zavoisky begin working for the Ascension Group. April 23rd, 1956. Shangri-La. Explorers Brock and Gary discover Shangri-La. During an eclipse, they're unwittingly trapped in a time loop. Sally, sent back in time from 2011, is trapped in the same loop. Ultimus arrives in Shangri-La. With the help of Brock and Gary, they acquire the Focusing Stone. June 3rd, 1959. The Pentagon constructs their own prototype teleporter and commence experimentation. March 15th, 1962. Studying Group 935's medicinal elixir research, the Ascension Group develops PhD Flopper and Stamina-Up. November 11th, 1962. Gersh begins working on Project Thunder. December 12th, 1962. Gersh and Yuri begin work on the Gersh device, codenamed Project Mercury. June 15th, 1963. The Pentagon begins development on their own version of the Wunderwaffe DG-2. August 17th, 1963. The Pentagon begins development on their own version of the Winter's Howl. October 28th, 1963. Kino der Toten. From Der Riese, Ultimus teleports to Kino. This marks the first time Ultimus travels across space and time. Temporal rifts occur across dimensions. In light of these developments, Monty feels obligated to step in and begins to make changes in the background across time. He helps Group 935 invent perk machines. He adds chalk drawings to the walls. Little nudges. Ultimus locates a lunar lander and fly to the Ascension facility. October 29th, 1963. Gersh informs the senior staff that Yuri has been removed from Project Mercury and has been transferred to Rocket Research. October 29th, 1963. Yuri begins to notice the appearance of children's toys around the facility. November 1st, 1963. Upon reading Richthofen's diary, Yuri begins to hear Samantha's voice. Over several days, her voice will consume him, driving him to the brink of insanity. She orders him to resume work on the Gersh device. He obeys. November 4th, 1963. Gersh announces to the committee that Project Thunder is nearing completion. Gersh reveals that Yuri may need to be removed from Ascension entirely, having observed his being hostile towards other scientists and frequently observed muttering to himself. November 5th, 1963. Obeying Samantha's wishes, Yuri tricks Gersh into activating the Gersh device. The rift created absorbs him and allows Samantha to travel through. Yuri is also absorbed and transported to the Pentagon. November 6th, 1963. Ascension. Ultimus arrives at the Soviet Cosmodrome and frees Gersh from the Casimir mechanism. Richthofen recovers his diary and learns that they need the Vril device from the Siberian facility for his plan. Maintaining his ethereal form, Gersh sends them into a rift to their next destination before beginning his travels across space and time. November 6, 1963. 5. In the Pentagon, John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, and Robert McNamara meet with Fidel Castro in the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Due to the events at the Cosmodrome, a zombie outbreak occurs. Samantha sends Yuri to the Pentagon to thwart their survival. After Gersh is freed and Ultimus departs from the Cosmodrome, the outbreak ends at the Pentagon. All 4 survive. November 19, 1963. In an effort to avoid another undead outbreak, the US government creates the Broken Arrow program, establishing several facilities across the country. The Groom Lake program is folded into Broken Arrow. August 11, 1973. Broken Arrow recovers a shard of element 115 from Division 9. September 29, 1979. Russman begins work at Broken Arrow. Over the course of his employment, his extensive exposure to element 115 leads to significant memory loss. April 20th, 1983. Broken Arrow begins live animal experiments with the shard, creating bios. June 24th, 1986. A containment breach involving the bios occurred at one of the Broken Arrow facilities. Russman is one of the few to escape alive. The facility is shut down and abandoned. Its projects are transferred to another location. June 24th, 1996. Victus arrives at the abandoned Broken Arrow facility. Still being pursued by undead Richtofen, they recover the element 115 shard and depart through another rift. March 17th, 2011. Call of the Dead. After entering the rift, Ultimus arrives at the Siberian facility in 2011, where they find themselves trapped in a closet while George A. Romero films his latest project at the location. Samantha, in her pursuit of Ultimus, unleashes an undead outbreak. The film stars fight the undead horde, ultimately recovering the Vril device for Richtofen. Ultimus teleports to Shangri-La in an effort to acquire the next artifact required to defeat Samantha, the Focusing Stone. April 11th, 2011. Following the disappearance of the Call of the Dead cast and crew, Romero's assistant Sally begins the search for her boss. Her journey leads her to Shangri-La during an eclipse, which sends her back in time to April 25th, 1953. April 10th, 2025. Broken Arrow creates the Denizens. July 8th, 2025. Broken Arrow accidentally creates the Avogadro. September 1st, 2025. In desperate need of more element 115, Broken Arrow uses an excavator to drill near the nuclear testing facility known as Nuketown. October 13th, 2025. Moon. Using the Vril device and the Focusing Stone, Richtofen completes his grand scheme and swaps bodies with Samantha on the moon, giving him full control of the zombies in the ether. Maxis contacts the remaining members of Ultimus through the station's electronics and asks for their help to defeat Richtofen. They agree. They launch missiles at Earth, leaving it fractured and broken. They sever Richtofen's connection with the ether, but he maintains control over the zombies. Once Maxis controls the ether in 2035, he returns back to the moon and plucks Samantha from Richtofen's body to join him in Agartha. October 13th, 2025. Nuketown Zombies. A nuclear bomb explodes outside of Nuketown as a result of Broken Arrow's drilling. CIA and CDC operatives arrive to find an undead outbreak already in progress. One of the missiles from the moon hits Nuketown, killing all on the site, except for Marlton Johnson, who survives by hiding in a nuclear bunker. October 13th, 2025. The Earth fracturing triggers further temporal rifts, teleporting an 1800s American western town underneath a mining facility in Angola. Arthur is pulled through the rift from 1318, arriving in the now buried town. November 5th, 2025. Broken Arrow is disbanded after the primary facility is lost in a fire. It is later believed to be an act of arson committed by employees destroying evidence implicating them in the outbreak. Russman, his mind broken after over 40 years of exposure to element 115, begins to wander the Earth. March 18th, 2027. In a distress call, former CDC Assistant Director George Barkley reveals that the infectious contaminants have gone airborne. He advises caution regarding any allies showing signs of short-term memory loss, psychosis, delusion, and paranoia. March 27th, 2027. A society of survivors who eat the undead is formed. They are the Flesh. May 12th, 2027. Samuel J. Stuhlinger joins the Flesh. June 28th, 2027. Through the consumption of the undead meat, the Flesh begin hearing Richtofen's voice. He tries to persuade them to build global polarization devices for him in pursuit of his new plan, to mend the rift in space-time and acquire full control over the ether. June 28th, 2027. Maxis begins communicating to survivors on Earth, telling those willing to listen to build global polarization devices for him in pursuit of his new plan, to open Agartha and reunite him with Samantha, even though it will result in the destruction of the Earth. April 4th, 2028. The Flesh broadcast their message across all frequencies. They tell others to heed our call, and that the path to enlightenment can be achieved by consuming the undead. The Flesh broadcasts messages telling others to heed their call, and that the path to enlightenment is achieved by consuming the undead. December 9th, 2028. Maxis' followers begin constructing a spire near the Hanford site facility. January 3rd, 2029. Maxis' followers begin to doubt him, believing he may in fact be evil. They destroy their electronics. March 2nd, 2029. Maxis' followers attempt to speak to him again. Many have begun to hear Richtofen, and those loyal to Maxis eagerly await further instructions. August 25th, 2029. A broadcast is sent out confirming the fall of the Flesh and Maxis' followers. With each group hearing the voice of Richtofen or Maxis, a battle broke out between them. As they fought, a zombie horde moved in and destroyed all who remained. Stuhlinger is one of the few to escape. Richtofen and Maxis are left with no one to communicate near Green Run, where the first polarization device must be constructed. October 13th, 2035. Stuhlinger bumps into Russman, who has stolen a bus from an abandoned Broken Arrow facility. October 21st, 2035. Transit. Stuhlinger and Russman run into Marlton and Abby, Misty, Briarton at a diner near the Hanford site facility. Maxis asks them to complete the polarization device in his favor. Stuhlinger, having consumed zombie meat, is contacted by Richtofen, who orders Stuhlinger to construct the device for him instead. The crew constructs the device for Maxis. The four would become known as Victus. October 22nd, 2035. Die Rise. Still hoping to regain control, Richtofen teleports Victus to Province 22, where he demands that Stuhlinger activate the second polarization device. Once again, the crew sides with Maxis. The voices cease for some time, leaving Victus to wander the Earth. December 21st, 2035. Buried. Victus arrives at an old western town now located beneath a mining facility in Angola. They discover Arthur in a jail cell. He assists them on their journey. The voices of Maxis and Richtofen return. They activate the final polarization device in Maxis' favor. Now corrupted by the dark ether, he reveals his true intentions to Victus and punishes Richtofen by trapping his soul in a zombie. Drawn into Agartha by her father, Samantha witnesses the evil that has corrupted him. When a rift opens in Dimension 63 in 1918, she reaches out to that timeline's Maxis for help. January 10th, 2036. Richtofen instructs undead Richtofen to pursue Victus and recover their blood vials. January 19th, 2036. Primus Richtofen begins to manipulate Stuhlinger, opening a rift for Victus to begin their new journey. Pursued by undead Richtofen and an army of the undead, Victus enters the rift. January 19th, 2036. Maxis destroys Earth and all its surviving inhabitants. Agartha. The Summoning Key. The Keepers craft the Summoning Key, a device that allows them to manipulate the ether, holding power over reality itself. They use it to create Agartha. The first transference device. The Keepers master the ability to travel between dimensions. The Dark Ether. Some Keepers begin to experiment with the Dark Ether, which corrupts and corrodes their soul. Among them is the Shadow Man. The Ether Pyramid. The corrupted keepers create the Ether Pyramid, a device capable of absolute power. A schism forms between them and those keepers untainted by the dark ether. The War of Agartha begins. War breaks out between the corrupted and uncorrupted keepers. The War of Agartha ends. Facing defeat, the corrupted keepers hide the Ether Pyramid on a moon within one of the newly discovered dimensions. After banishing the corrupted keepers to the dark ether beneath creation, the remaining keepers take on the mantle of guardians. Trapped in the dark ether, the corrupted keepers contort and evolve over eons, ultimately becoming the Apothicons. They desire, above all else, to return to Agartha. The First Arrival. With Dr. Monty's help, the Maxis drone arrives at the house in Agartha. Despite the absence of his soul, Monty recreates a physical manifestation of his Dimension 63 form. The Arrival of Samantha. Monty brings Samantha to the house, reuniting her with the Dimension 63 incarnation of her father. Samantha's corruption. Knowing that Samantha is corrupted by the dark ether, Monty takes her away from Maxis and the house. The isolation of Maxis. Alone in the house and missing his daughter, Maxis wonders if Richtofen will have the courage to fulfill the vow he made all those years ago. The rediscovery of the empty earth. Having observed Monty for some time, Maxis uses the teleporter in the basement of the house to study and explore other dimensions. Among them is the empty earth, where an alternate Maxis had constructed Zero Base, a facility that houses artifacts and replicas collected from a multitude of different timelines. However, his attempts to manipulate the empty earth create a reality too fragile to be sustained. The restoration of innocence. Monty returns Samantha to Maxis, her innocence restored. Monty's plan. Monty explains to Maxis that the paradox wrought by a multiverse must be resolved. A new reality can be created, one free of the Apothicons, but only if they enlist and aid the souls of those who have lived through and survived the fracturing. The Chronorium secured. Among the artifacts that Maxis collected in Zero Base is an ancient book known as the Chronorium, a complete chronicle of the entire history and future of all reality. Protected by various countermeasures, the facility can only be accessed by those possessing a soul. Richtofen's journey begins. Maxis tells Richtofen the plan to secure the Chronorium and locate the summoning key. Hearing the echoes of his other selves, Richtofen discovers his connection with Samuel Stuhlinger and decides to use Victus to acquire the Chronorium. The manipulation of Stuhlinger. Having overseen the construction of a laboratory beneath Alcatraz, Richtofen returns to the house, where he begins to communicate with Stuhlinger. Together, they persuade Victus to travel to a variety of locations in order to recover the Chronorium. The Chronorium retrieved. Upon arriving at Zero Base, Victus provides blood samples that will allow them access to the empty earth and recover the Chronorium. The blood acquired. Richtofen collects Victus's blood samples from the undead Richtofen. The arrival of Edward. Richtofen collects Eddie's innocent soul from Dimension 2210, and Monty gives him a physical form in the house. Samantha meets Edward. Eddie and Samantha meet each other for the first time. Samantha writes in her diary that Edward doesn't like to share toys. The happiness of children. Monty brings Eddie and Samantha more toys. The fragility of memory. Maxis notes that teleportation and travel between dimensions could have a profound impact on the mind. He fears that the confusion caused by the collision of memories past, present, and future could lead to the collapse of reality itself. The arrival of the souls. The souls arrive. Maxis tells Samantha and Eddie to put the toys away and to make sure that the windows are locked before they come down to the basement. The children reborn. As each soul arrives, Monty transforms them into their younger selves and return their innocence. The arrival of Primus. Now soulless, Primus brings the summoning key to the house, where Maxis unwittingly releases the Shadow Man, who in turn frees the Apothicons from the dark ether. Unaware that they will be wiped from existence once they have served their purpose, Primus battles alongside Monty in his final battle against the Shadow Man. Revelations. With the Shadow Man and the Apothicons vanquished, Monty discovers that Primus has consumed the blood of souls from dimensions that no longer exist. The paradox must be resolved. Fractures. Deceptio Fracture. October 13th, 1945. The Giant. As a zombie outbreak occurs, Primus, Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai confront Ultimus Richthofen moments after he teleports Maxis and Samantha. As they try to reason with him to wake their counterparts, Primus Richthofen arrives through the teleporter and kills his Ultimus self, triggering fractures across space-time. As Primus fights the undead, Group 935 secure the Dempsey subject and transport him to Der Eisendrache. Primus pursues them in a German Giant. October 29th, 1945. Dr. Groff takes control of Group 935 in Richthofen's absence, not realizing his fate at the hands of Primus. October 31st, 1945. In the wake of haunted dreams and rumors that Samantha may be roaming Griffin Station, Groff worries the MPD may be corrupting the facility. November 5th, 1945. Der Eisendrache. Recovering the Dempsey subject from a rocket bound for the moon, Richthofen secures his soul and reveals to Primus his intention to set things right. Primus destroys Griffin Station and the moon. Protezione Fracture. April 12th, 1942. Overrun by the undead, the Rising Sun facility is lost. July 8th, 1942. Division 9 begins construction of the island facility. October 9th, 1942. With construction complete, Division 9 continue their projects at the island facility. November 5th, 1942. Takio is dispatched by the Emperor to oversee the work of Division 9 at the island facility. February 6th, 1943. Division 9 expands experimentation to include use of prisoners of war, Division 9 staff, arachnids, and mythical beasts. June 15th, 1943. Takio reports to the Emperor the work being done at the island facility is unacceptable. July 24th, 1943. On the orders of the Emperor, Takio is taken prisoner by Division 9. He is used as a test subject for their organic, plant-based experiments. September 13th, 1945. Cornelia attempts to send a transmission to Peter McCain, telling him to rendezvous at the abandoned Rising Sun facility. October 18th, 1945. Zetsubo no Shima. Primus secures Takio's soul after they help him commit seppuku. Richthofen takes the crew to Dimension 63 to collect their blood for the insurance policy. They return to the island before traveling to their next destination. October 18th, 1945. Peter McCain makes his jump into Shinonuma as a temporal rift opens below him. As a result of Primus's universe fractures, the rift teleports him to Gorod Krovi. Agonia Fracture. November 11th, 1942. Groff confirms that Division 9 has completed the resurrection of the ancient beasts for the battle on the Eastern Front. Reports suggest that the specimens are still extremely dangerous, but the German stalemate on the Eastern Front with the Russians will soon come to an end, thanks to their involvement. January 3rd, 1943. The Russians use stolen Group 935 research to create the Russian Gigant, the Russian Mangler, and the Raygun Mark III. February 22nd, 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad doesn't end. Thanks to the technological advancements on both sides, World War II continues indefinitely. February 13th, 1943. Working with Maxis at the Kino facility, Sophia reveals that she was attacked by Subject 26. February 14th, 1943. Having learned Sophia was attacked by Subject 26, Maxis kills her and transforms her brain into a machine, the Strategic Operations Planning Heuristic Intelligence Analyzer, Sophia. July 7th, 1943. Sophia is transferred to Stalingrad to oversee Group 935's operations. September 2nd, 1943. Harvey Yena reports the dragons have proven beneficial the war effort at Stalingrad. He confirms that Diaglock research continues to explore time displacement and movement across dimensions. November 6th, 1943. Sophia confirms the existence of Project Rasputin, the Russian Mangler soldier. January 11th, 1944. Sophia confirms the Russian Gigant robot has set back the German advance. April 14th, 1945. Sophia declares the Battle of Stalingrad is nearing victory for German forces and that Valkyrie drones have been deployed to locate any resistance strains and attempt capture. After the release of large concentrations of element 115 by German forces, the city becomes largely populated by the undead. Nikolai and his comrades continue to fight for what remains of Stalingrad. September 2nd, 1945. World War II still rages on. Stalingrad has turned into a three-way conflict between Dragon, Machine, and the undead. Without any remaining human survivors, Sophia is now trapped in the city. November 6th, 1945. Drifting through space and time in his ethereal form, Gersh arrives in the Fracture. November 6th, 1945. Gorod Krovi. Primus arrives, frees Sophia, and acquires Nikolai's soul. Richtofen teleports the souls of Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai to Maxis at the house. Monty announces his existence to Primus for the first time. April 25th, 1956. While traveling to Shangri-La, Brock and Gary's plane crashes into the mountains as a result of a freak atmospheric event. Another side effect of the temporal rifts created by Primus while traveling to Gorod Krovi. November 6th, 1963. Hiding in a closet at the Pentagon, McNamara receives a message confirming that John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, and Fidel Castro have died as a result of a zombie outbreak. He dies moments later. Dimension 63. January 15th, 1292. The Great War between humanity and the Apothicons begins. April 14th, 1294. Sir Pablo Marinus is saved from the clutches of Amargua by 4 unknown heroes. They would later become known as Primus. December 31st, 1299. Together with the Keepers, Primus defeats the Apothicons, bringing the Great War to an end. January 1st, 1300. Before they seemingly disappear from history, Primus instructs the Wolf King to begin building Der Eisendrache. February 18th, 1300. Pablo begins documenting the Great War, including all that he has learned about the Keepers, Apothicons, and Element 115. Regarding Element 115's power, he notes that a site in northern France contains massive deposits of the element. June 4th, 1300. In northern France, a tomb is constructed to honor the fallen soldiers of the Great War. Within it, statues of Primus are constructed to symbolize the hope that if one day a great evil falls upon mankind, they may return. July 17th, 1898. Edward Richtofen's parents die. February 20th, 1905. Takio Masaki fights in the Battle of Mukden. August 11th, 1906. Richtofen begins his studies at the Heidelberg University under the tutelage of Dr. Ludwig Maxis. Having lost his parents, Richtofen comes to view him as a father figure. July 3rd, 1912. Richtofen and Maxis join Group 935. June 4th, 1914. Richtofen is visited by another version of himself. Handing him some blood vials, he explains, "You will need this blood. When the time comes, it will protect you," before stepping back through the rift. January 5th, 1915. Maxis invents the Mauser prototype. August 25th, 1916. The Journal of Sir Pablo Marinus, Knight of the Great War, is discovered by Group 935. March 23rd. Using information gathered from Pablo's journal, Group 935 begins work at a dig site in northern France, where they discover a series of underground tombs. April 21st, 1917. Group 935 discover what appears to be the entrance to the tomb's main chamber. They struggle to gain access. May 11th, 1917. Unable to access the main chamber, soldiers listen to a gramophone to alleviate their frustration. When listening to a recording of La Source Noire, the entrance to the main chamber unexpectedly opens. The camp's exposure to Element 115 begins. May 21st, 1917. Using information from Pablo's journal and the tomb's main chamber, Maxis draws schematics for the creation of 4 elemental staffs and instructs Richtofen to begin their construction. May 29th, 1917. The more Maxis reads of the Great War, the more he begins to question his understanding of the scientific world and the true nature of the universe itself. He finds himself open to the possibility of a higher power. June 11th, 1917. As Group 935 experiments with element 115, they successfully create localized energy fields which appear to function as portals, noting that objects can pass through them. Maxis speculates that the rifts may have opened gateways across space and time. The rift allows Samantha to reach out to Maxis from Agartha. She begs for his help and ultimately reveals she is his daughter. June 15th, 1917. An ancient box with the power to manifest weapons from different eras arrives through a portal. Maxis fears that element 115 is disrupting the space-time continuum. July 1st, 1917. Following the installation of element 115 power generators, reports surfaced regarding ancient figures emerging from the dig sites, corresponding with the mysterious death of a number of Group 935 soldiers. The ancient figures are undead knights from the Great War. August 3rd, 1917. Nikolai Belinsky is sent into exile. September 10th, 1917. Using element 115, Group 935 constructs Freya, Odin, and Thor, giant robots who they believe will secure victory for the Central Powers. September 22nd, 1917. Richthofen notes that in spite Group 935's progress at the dig site, he is troubled by Maxis' growing obsession with Pablo's diary. October 6, 1917. Takeo Masaki is dispatched to France by the Emperor to gather intel on Group 935's weapon technology. November 19, 1917. Following reports of prototyped armored weaponry, strange lights in the sky, a mysterious plague, and even giant metal men, Tank Dempsey is deployed in northern France to assess the extent of Group 935's capabilities. December 10, 1917. Already exiled in Europe, Nikolai receives new orders from the Imperial Russian Army to investigate the enemy war machine. Still loyal to the motherland, he willingly obeys. February 23, 1918. Nikolai writes of the ongoing civil war in his homeland. He does not expect peace to last long, but he is enjoying his time in France. March 22, 1918. Learning that the Emperor wishes to meet him to discuss a matter of great importance to our nation, Takeo writes that he feels a growing sense of dread in the wakes of his recent dark, twisted dreams. April 14, 1918. Despite ongoing battles, Dempsey fares well in northern France. In a personal letter, he reveals that both the Japanese and Russian armies have also sent spies to investigate the activities of Group 935. May 1, 1918. Maxis is obsessed with the voice of Samantha, who now speaks to him constantly. He believes her to be the key to everything. May 12, 1918. Believing that his mentor has been affected by element 115 like others at the dig site, Richthofen reports Maxis' erratic behavior to Group 935 senior staff. May 13, 1918. Richthofen learns from Pablo's journal that the northern France dig site may be the single largest deposit of element 115 on Earth. He believes this explains why it has affected so many at the site. May 14, 1918. Now completely consumed by Samantha's voice, Maxis swears he will no longer serve Group 935's mission. June 4, 1918. Origins. Element 115 awakens the undead knights from the Great War and quickly consumes the camp. Maxis is rendered catatonic by the element. Richthofen removes his brain before he turns. Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo unite with Richthofen on the battlefield and help free Samantha from her imprisonment in Agartha. Primus has been reunited. Samantha sends Primus to their next destination. Maxis' brain arrives in Agartha and Dr. Monty decides to step in. Monty brings Maxis' brain to the house and wipes the Maxis corrupted by the dark ether from existence. July 18, 1922. Salvador Sal DeLuca opens gambling houses across Chicago. This marks the beginning of the DeLuca crime family. February 17, 1923. Billy Handsome joins the DeLuca crime family as a hitman. Sal will come to look at Billy as the son he never had. September 18, 1923. An expert in gambling and rigging sporting events, Michael Finn O'Leary begins working for Sal. March 23, 1924. Finn marries Angela Bow, an aspiring starlet with delusions of grandeur. March 1, 1929. Sal writes of his frustration with Chicago's finest. After many years of successful bribes with the city, it becomes clear that it no longer is an option. May 11th, 1930, Sal begins to work with Albert Al Arlington, an associate in Los Angeles known for being a master schemer and bank robber. October 14th, 1930, Finn informs his lawyer that he will not accept divorce from Angela, saying she can leave this marriage the day she leaves this earth. October 11th, 1931. After an LA heist for Sal goes wrong, Al wakes up in the hospital. October 28th, 1931. While in the hospital, Al submits Icarus from Mars for publication as a comic strip. It is his third attempt. It is denied again. November 11th, 1931. Angry and frustrated with his collapsing empire, Sal kills a prostitute. No longer willing to turn a blind eye, Chicago PD arrests him. December 1st, 1931. In an operation against DeLuca crime family, Billy is arrested for multiple homicides. December 19th, 1931. In an operation against the DeLuca crime family, Finn is arrested by Chicago PD when his wife offers evidence against him. January 19th, 1932. Al is arrested for his role in the LA heist. May 14th, 1932. Sal is found guilty of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. May 16th, 1932. Billy is found guilty of 116 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. May 30th, 1932. Finn is found guilty of 16 counts of gambling fraud. He will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. June 13th, 1932. Sal and Billy arrive at Alcatraz Island. June 30th, 1932. Finn arrives at Alcatraz Island. July 1st, 1932. Al is found guilty of grand larceny, grand theft auto, arson, conspiracy, and battery. He will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. August 3rd, 1932. Al arrives at Alcatraz Island. January 13th, 1933. Stanley Ferguson begins working at Alcatraz Island. April 1st, 1933. Al convinces Sal, Finn, and Billy that they can build a plane and escape Alcatraz. December 2nd, 1933. Realizing the plane will never be completed, and embittered with rage, Sal, Finn, and Billy plot to get revenge on Al. December 31st, 1933. Finn, Sal, and Billy lure Al to the roof and kill him. January 11th, 1934. Stepping through a rift, Richtofen secures the blood samples of Sal and Finn. January 19th, 1934. Found guilty of Al's murder, Sal, Finn, and Billy are executed by electric chair. Mob of the Dead. Sal, Finn, Billy, and Al battle waves of the undead as they find themselves trapped in a seemingly endless cycle. April 16th, 1940. Richtofen arrives in Dimension 63, where he contacts members of the Illuminati and enlists their help to build a laboratory facility beneath Alcatraz. April 18th, 1940. Richtofen meets with Stanley Ferguson and convinces him to assist with the Illuminati's construction of the Alcatraz laboratory. July 3rd, 1941. Stanley Ferguson reports that the laboratory has been completed and that the subjects will be placed into the stasis chambers upon arrival. July 4th, 1941. Richtofen returns to the lab under Alcatraz where he meets Victus. Arriving from the empty Earth with the Chronorium, upon reading the Chronorium, Richtofen discovers numerous timelines documenting their fates and learns about the blood vials. He would later write on the page, "I know now what I must do." ER 41741. Richtofen enters a rift to acquire the blood of Sal and Finn. After delivering the blood to his younger self and recovering the blood vials belonging to Victus, he returns. Victus is placed on ice to be kept safe until they are needed next. July 4th, 1941. Primus arrives to collect the Victus blood samples from Richtofen. Following Primus's departure, Richtofen learns the location of the summoning key and travels to his next destination. October 1st, 1943. Stanley Ferguson leaves employment at Alcatraz. October 21st, 1943. Posing as Mr. Rapp, the Shadow Man hires the reporter to recover artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia. December 14th, 1943. The reporter recovers the artifacts from South Pacific and Russia. Among them is the summoning key. December 25th, 1943. As per Mr. Rapp's request, the reporter speaks to Stanley Ferguson, a retired guard from Alcatraz. Stanley gives a detailed account of the deaths of Al Arlington, Billy Handsome, Finn O'Leary, and Sal DeLuca. December 31st, 1943. As Mr. Rapp's request, the reporter arrives in Morgue City to take in its sights, sounds, and smells. January 15th, 1944. A meteor shower rains over Morgue City. January 30th, 1944. The reporter notes strange mold now growing all over the city. He also notes people are getting sick and acting delirious. February 13th, 1944. A fruit vendor tells the reporter about the ancient order of the Keepers and how they're the only ones holding back the forces of the apocalypse. He talks of people hearing, chanting from beneath the city. March 30th, 1944. The reporter sends Mr. Rapp a telegram, providing details and contact information for Nero, Jessica Rose, Floyd Campbell, and Jack Vincent. April 5th, 1944. Aware of the Shadow Man's actions, Monty writes to the reporter, warning him not to give the summoning key to anyone. April 10th, 1944. Jessica Rose learns a photographer is in possession of compromising pictures of her. April 20th, 1944. Pretending to be a company executive, the Shadow Man tells Nero's lawyer that Nero's wife has taken out substantial loans in his name. Nero has 15 days to settle before the company seeks reparation. Facing multiple debts due to his wife's spending habits, Nero decides to kill his wife and use her life insurance to pay the debt. April 20th, 1944. Masquerading as an internal affairs officer, the Shadow Man tries to convince Jack Vincent's partner to admit that Jack is on the take. Upon learning that internal affairs is snooping around, Jack plots to kill the snitch who could provide evidence against him. April 20th, 1944. The Shadow Man poses as a film director interested in hiring Jessica for a leading role. He tells the producer the part is hers. Afraid that the photographer could jeopardize her chance at stardom, she asks for him to meet her so they can sort stuff out. April 20th, 1944. Posing as a journalist, the Shadow Man suggests Floyd Campbell is a journeyman fighter to Floyd's promoter. Wanting to guarantee his shot at the title, Floyd decides to wear brass knuckles under his gloves for his fight with Tony King. April 21st, 1944. Nero misses a call from his lawyer, informing him the documents were forged and there's nothing to worry about. April 21st, 1944. Jack misses a call from his partner, saying he has his back with internal affairs and has nothing to worry about. April 21st, 1944. Floyd misses a call from his promoter that the fight was a success and that he has a shot at the title. April 21st, 1944. Jessica misses a call from her producer. He says he didn't have a good feeling about the director and it didn't work out. However, he scored her a lead in a musical he and his partner are financing. April 21st, 1944. Jessica kills the photographer and secures the incriminating photographs. April 21st, 1944. Jack kills the snitch who could have turned him over to internal affairs. April 21st, 1944. Floyd kills Tony King in the boxing match and cashes in on his winnings. April 21st, 1944. Nero kills his wife in a work accident, cashing in her life insurance policy to square away the debts. April 21st, 1944. Richtofen arrives in Morgue City to secure the summoning key. April 22nd, 1944. Richtofen learns the reporter has the summoning key and confronts him. The reporter waves Monty's letter at Richtofen and orders him to stay away before attacking him. Richtofen kills the reporter in self-defense. April 25th, 1944. Shadows of Evil. Nero, Jack, Floyd, and Jessica are knocked unconscious at the Black Lace Burlesque Club. They wake up in a twisted version of Morgue City, shifted slightly from reality. Told they can atone for their sins by the Shadow Man, all four are tricked into performing rituals. Jessica sacrifices her producer. Jack sacrifices his partner. Floyd sacrifices his promoter, and Nero sacrifices his lawyer. Completing the required rituals, the Apothecans are given access to Dimension 63. Realizing they've been duped, the four work with the Keepers to defeat the Shadow Man. They trap him in the summoning key, but before they can hand it over to the Keepers, Primus Richtofen arrives and steals the key. Richtofen travels to Dimension 2210 to secure an innocent Richtofen soul. He delivers the soul to the house. From within the summoning key, the Shadow Man states, "I'll be seeing you."